WGEM's Haley Adams spoke to officials about what you can do to prevent skin cancer.
Skin cancer is one of the most common kinds of cancer, and Jim Wheeler, a dermatology physician's assistant for Quincy Medical Group, says it's also one of the most preventable. He discussed things like adding a 30+ broad-spectrum SPF sunscreen into your daily routine and making sure to regularly reapply it when needed. Avoiding peak sunlight hours around 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., he says, is also beneficial. He added that prevention is easier than it used to be.
We no longer have to just go with those pasty white creams that everyone used to wear. Sunblocks come in various forms now. We have sprays, we have foams, and a lot of times even your favorite moisturizer already has SPF in it. I feel like the younger generation has been a lot smarter than we were. People are now taking into consideration the effects of the sun and the damage that it does do later in life due to research and all of the information that's available to them.
Additional advice includes routine skin checks to look for any lesions in the skin or changes which grow to appear unexpectedly. And the Skin Cancer Foundation says it's important to remember that skin cancer accumulates from sun exposure over the years. They stress the importance of getting a head start with prevention.